Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So you guys might have guessed watching the thumbnail that in this video we're going to be building a modern landing page. Now this is for a fictional architectural company. Now the design, I picked it up from Behance. The link to the design would be down in the description, so you guys can definitely check the design out and share your love and support to the creators. Now, before we get started with the preview of the finished project, I'd just like to say that these videos take so much time to be built. Now, first, I take days to make the project. First, I need to have like so much research done on to finding the one which you guys might like with a lot of interactions, animations and stuff. I need to plan out how to add what stuff to the design and stuff like that. And then it takes a lot of time to build these and then also to create the video and then edit those. So it takes a really lot of effort. So the only thing that I'm asking is if you guys could show a little more effort. Like, I've seen that many of you watch my videos but haven't subscribed to the channel. So it really motivates me when you guys like really love my videos and also subscribe to the channel and also comment down what you liked regarding the video, or even if you have any doubts, or even if you have a better solution to the problems that we might have in the project. If you guys comment in the videos, because what it helps is it makes the video more engaging, so YouTube pushes the video to a wider range of audience. Now, so the only thing that I'm asking is please share your support to the channel by watching them to a certain extent, so that the views do not like drop only on a few minutes benchmark, because these take in a lot of time and effort. And also I'm trying to post or put out the videos which are beginner friendly and also some are intermediate friendly. So the only thing that I can ask for is your support. So without any delay, first let's see how the video is or how the project is. So this is deployed in Netlify with the URL vrch.netlify.app. Now if I reload the page, you would see that the text fade in, and then you have smooth scrolling, which we're going to be adding using Linus instead of locomotive scroll. Now many like prefer to use locomotive scroll, but I usually like Linus because it's more simpler. And then when you scroll, you see these text and also these images, these cards kind of fade in. Now when you hover, you see these scale up animation, and then you have these custom buttons. And then these text, these headings as well, they kind of fade in along with these cards. Okay, and then you have kind of like an odometer. So this we're going to be building using the library odometer.js. And then you have these images fading in from left, right, and from bottom. And then you have these texts, and you see these hover effects. So we're going to be building everything from using CSS. And then you have this marquee. So we're going to be using HTML element marquee, and then we're going to be customizing it. And then you have the brand section where you have different brands. When you hover, you get this border and background effect. Okay. And then at the end, you have the footer. Now this is also responsive. So this is how it would look for the desktop screens. Now for the desktop screens as well, I have added the menu. When you click, a full screen navigation slides in from the left side. Now if you want to look for the small screens, let's open Control-Shift-I, and then let's go to this for the devices. So if you want to look for the smaller mobile screen, so this is how it would look. Okay, for 375 pixels of width. So this is how it looks, as you can see. So the text is pretty well structured along with these cards and stuff, and also the gapping is pretty good. So you have these cars. Let's refresh and let's see the animation, how it looks on mobile screens. Let's go to top and yeah, okay. So the text fade in and then these headings, these cards, okay. The odometer loads well. These images, okay. So this is how it looks for the mobile screens. It's pretty well structured and is very well in terms of responsiveness. Now let's see for the tablet screens. Now let's go to this iPad Air maybe. Okay, so yeah, so this one also looks really neat. Okay, you can look for the navigation. You can click here, you see the full screen, even for the mobile screens as well. Looks neat. So yeah, this is what we're going to be building in today's video. The source code of this is obviously in the description, so you guys can download that, use it for your maybe commercial or maybe your personal use. So I have no objection. You can use it to however you want. You can maybe also customize it and make it even better. So yeah, do let me know in the comments if you have made it and if you have customized it to look better than this. Now, so that's it for the intro. Let's see how to build this in actual using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and a lot of other libraries. So yeah, let's get started. So here I am in the folder wherein we're going to be building all the different stuff. So in the folder, you would see that we have a CSS folder wherein we have some CSS file. First, we have the animate library, which is animate.css here. And then we're going to be using Bootstrap Grid, which contains the different containers along with the row column grid system that Bootstrap has. And then we have the CSS for the odometer.css and then our custom style.css file. So yeah, so this is the CSS, and then in the fonts, we're going to be using two fonts. One is Cabinet Grotesque, and then we have Nonito. So we're going to be using these two fonts. So I have here the TTF formats for both the fonts. And then in the images folder, we have all the different images along with the images for the different icons that we're going to be using. These arrow icons along with the brand logo, and then the hamburger menu icon logo, and then the star icon that we can be using in our marquee as well. And then in the JavaScript, we have the JavaScript file for Lennis.js, we have odometer.js, and then we have wow.js in the JavaScript. Now the custom JavaScript that we're going to be writing, would write it in the script tag. Now if you want, you can also create another custom script.js, and then you can add it here. But for this, I just write everything inside of the script tag itself. Now the reason for adding the files instead of the CDN links is because when you're building big projects, oftentimes you would not use the CDNs, but you would have to download the files and then add them manually as files in the file structure. So here I have the index.html file and I have the style.css. Now here I have added some comments just so that when you download the file, you know which section indicates what. So here first, I just add the link to the Bootstrap Grid, the Animate CSS, the odometer CSS, and then my custom style.css. And then for the JavaScript, we would add odometer.js, wow.js, and Lennis. Now, if you see here in the browser, I have my finished project, which is vrs.netlify.app open in one tab, and then so this is the one that we'll be working on. So this one is the blank file, now blank page. Now, what you're going to do is first, let's do one thing. In the CSS, we're going to be starting with our CSS instead of HTML. The reason for that is because we're going to be creating some utility classes. Now, if you look at the finished one, you'd see that we have a big heading. So this is the big heading. Now, similar to this, we have this one. This is the second type of heading which you'd see in the different sections. So we have two types of headings, and then we have another third type, which are these. So basically, we have three types of headings that we're using in this site, okay? And then each section has a unique way of defining its section headings. So you have so let's say this is a section heading. On the left, you have some content, and then on the right, you have the type of heading. So this is the second type of heading. So this together constructs the section heading of one entire section. And then if you look at the next section, all they're doing is basically alternating the side. So now the heading is on the left and then the text is on the right. So yeah, there's that. And then another type of section heading would be everything at the center. Okay. So we have three types of heading. Then we have a section heading, which basically has the heading along with some text and button. Now, if you look for the button, we have two types of button. One is this, and then one is this one, okay? So for the buttons as well, we have two types of buttons. Now here, what I want to do is first, let's remove the margin and padding and add box sizing as border box. And then the font family, I add here text, and the font weight is 500. Now, what is this text font family and what is this font weight? Now, the font weight is the normal font weight that we have, but then this text font family is basically the font family Nonito. Now, we're going to be adding these fonts, these TTF format fonts as the fonts here. So to use that, first, let's add the font size as 62.5% since we're going to be using rem units instead of pixels. And then we don't want any overflow in the x-axis, so we'd remove that by saying overflow x hidden. And then also we don't want any scroll bars, so we just hide it using display none. Now, to use custom fonts, you need to define the font face. Now here you add the name of how you want this font family to be used. So the font family name for the first one would be just heading. And then what is the URL of the font face? So you just add the source and then you add the URL of the font. Now in this case, it is inside of the fonts folder. So I've just added the URL for that. And then also you need to specify, since this is a TTF, you need to specify that the format is true type. So this is for the heading. And then we'd have another one. Now this one is font family, we're just saying it as text. So this is the text that we're using here. Essentially, this text is basically Nonito. Now, instead of adding here the font family name as heading, you could have added here Cabinet Grotesque as the name, but I just wanted to keep it simpler. So I just wrote here the name as heading, since we're going to be using mostly this one for the headings. And this one is for the rest of the text that we have in our website. And then we'd have the source, we'd add the URL, and also the format as true type. Okay. All right. Now in the body, we want the font size as 1.6 rem, since when we reduce the font size to 62.5%, now the entire site font reduces. So we want to scale it up again. So we'd add font size to 1.6 rem, which is essentially 16 pixels. And then the background, we'd set the background color, the color of the font. And then also we don't want any overflow, so we specify here as well. Okay. And then all the different anchor tags that we have, we don't want any text decoration. Neither do we want them to have any specific color. The color that they should have is the color that their parent has. So they basically will inherit the color. Let's save. Now let's get started with the heading. So we have the first heading, which would have the font family of heading. The font size would be 12 rem, and then the weight would be bold. Now, the reason for adding rem units instead of pixels is because I have one video. If you haven't checked that out, make sure to watch that video out. It would explain you guys why rems are so important and why they are more useful compared to the pixels. And yeah, so this 12 rem would be 120 pixels, since 1 rem now is equal to 10 pixels, since we have shrunk down the size to 62.5%. All right, so this is what it is for the heading 1. And then also the color needs to be white. For the heading 2, we're going to set the font family, font size as 7 rem, font weight as bold, the color same white. Heading 3, same font family, font size this time 4.8, font weight, color. Okay, so we have our 3 headings done. Now these 3 headings are, so this is the heading 1, which is essentially being used only once. Then this one is the heading 2. And then we have these heading 3s. Okay. Now the section heading, how the section heading would be created. So we have 2 sections. Okay, we'd have 2 divs which would have the content. So these would be inside of paragraph, and then we'd have one anchor tag, and then another div wherein we have this one, this heading. So we basically want the section heading as flex, and we want to align everything at the center, and then justify content to space between so that we have a gap at the center, and then both of the div and wrapping these 2 stuff, they kind of spread to the corners. And then the paragraph, essentially this one, we want to give it a width of 38 characters, and then the BTN2, since as I've said that we can have 2 types of BTN, so this is essentially the second type of BTN. So this BTN would have a margin top of 2 rem. Now just in a moment we're going to be building all the different buttons, but now let's wrap up the sections or the headings. So we're done with the section heading. Now we're going to start with the button 1. Now the first button is this one. Okay, so this has a padding top and bottom of 1 rem, left and right 3 rem, a border radius of 2 rem, font size of 1.3, a border of 1 pixel solid of this color. But then the border bottom color, this one, you see the border bottom is so dark that it kind of blends in with the background itself. So we have a darker border at the bottom, and then the color is this. And then the background, you see the linear gradient background. So we're going to be using linear gradient for that. Now this needs to go to top. So we have a dark color from the bottom, which takes in 15%. Then we have a little lighter shade, which takes up 85%, and then we have the third one. Okay, so we're done with the BTN 1. Now let's see how these look. So if you want to test out, we can create a BTN 1. Let's add here BTN_1, and let's write button test. Okay, something like that. You can save and you can see. So this is the button test. Okay, let's remove it. Now for the BTN2, we have a color, we have a font family as headings, and the font size, and then display flex with. Now if you see here, the second type of button has this arrow icon. Now this is an image. So whatever text you add, this icon should basically attach itself right at the end, not anywhere else. So the width of the button needs to be of fit content, so that whatever content you add is basically takes up that specific size of width. Now we're going to be, for the image, we're going to be using a BTN. We're going to be using an after pseudo selector, so that the image gets attached at the end. So we're going to set content to empty string, since whenever you add before and after pseudo selector, you need to add content as empty string. Then I want to add the URL of the image. Okay. And then the background size needs to be contained. We don't want any repeat, so we'll remove the background repeat. And then the Y position of the image needs to be at the bottom. Width and height needs to be 4 rem and 3 rem 3 rem respectively. And then the display, it needs to be inline block, or else you won't be able to set the width and height. And also margin left needs to be 1 rem. And then the transition, now the transition is for this scale and rotate effect. So we're going to have 0.3 seconds ease. And then the BTN to hover, whenever we hover over the button, the after that we had, we just transform it. We're going to rotate it minus 25 degrees, and we're going to scale it up 1.1. Now to test it, let's bring back our button. Now here we have BTN1, let's add BTN2. Okay, you see, we have a background. So as of now, instead of here adding a background, we need to use anchor tags, since this is essentially for anchor tags. So if you add a tag, you see, okay. All right, now we're going to start off with the main. Okay, let's remove it. Okay, so our HTML, the utility class, some of the utility class that we needed are done. Now let's add the markup. So if you see the page, we have the nav. Basically, we have a main tag. If you have been following me for all these years, you know that whenever I build a site, I like to keep it HTML semantic. So basically, we're going to be having a main tag which would unwrap everything. So we have the main tag. Inside of that, we have this nav. We'd have different sections, so we're going to be using the section tag. We have one for the intro, one for about. So this is basically the about that we're going to call. And then we have the rating, which has this odometer. And then we have kind of like a portfolio section wherein we have these. So we're going to call it portfolio. And then we have the marquee, which is this. And then we have the brand section, which is this. And then we have the footer. Okay. So this is essentially the structure of the page. Now the main needs to take the entire width. So we're going to call it container fluid. And since container fluid has some padding, I just removed that as well. Now, if you go to the Bootstrap grid, you would see that I've added some stuff. Now the benefit of using, instead of using CDNs, if you download it, that you can customize the grids itself for your own comfort. So what I did is I added another media query for 1500 pixels of min width. And what I did is basically I took in all the different containers and I've set the max width to 1440 pixels if the minimum width is 1500 pixels. So by default, it was only till 1400 pixels, but I just wanted to add one for the even bigger screens. So I've added this extra media query. So when you download the entire folder, make sure to download this file as well. Or else if you plan on using CDNs instead of adding these files custom, so you might miss out on these properties. So make sure you add these. Okay. So we have the main. Now the nav also needs to take the entire width, so it would have the container fluid. And then inside of that, we're gonna have our container extra large. And then we'd have the anchor tag for the logo, this logo. We're gonna add the image, and then anchor tag for home, studio, services, contact, and FAQs. So I'll just quickly paste those. And then we have this let's talk button, so we can use an anchor tag for that. And then we have this menu. I'll just add that. Now if you see, when I click onto this menu, the sidebar shows up. So this is going to be inside of a menu container div, when I'm going to paste all these inside of the menu container itself. Now if I save now, you'd see this is how it looks, but we're going to style it later in CSS so that this is only visible when we click onto the icon and not every time. Okay, and then also we'll add the anchor tag, which says let's talk. Okay, now inside of the intro we have, so we're gonna have a container XL. So basically we're dealing with the container of extra large size. So here we have the background image, which we're going to be using in CSS, which we're going to be adding in CSS. We have the heading, we have the P tag, and then these projects, and then we have the button. So here we can have the heading 1, which we just built. We can add the P tag when we have the text, and then the projects, wherein we have 2 project div. Both have images. Let's add, and then the btn type 2 with the arrow icon. We'll just add that. Let's save. If I scroll, we have the heading, text, and then these images, and also this btn2. Now in the about as well, we have the container XL. Since everything needs to be structured and everything needs to have the same kind of gapping from left and right, so we're using container XL. This would have the section heading, which we just built. So the section heading would have a div with P tag when we have the text for this, and then we'd also have the anchor tag inside of the same div. And then we'd have another div which would wrap this H2. Let's save. Okay, so this is how our section heading looks. Then we'd have the row bootstrap grid system. Now since we have 3 cards, so we can have a call for kind of width. So we can have 3 call fors, which would add up to call 12. Now if you guys don't know what a bootstrap grid system is, I have another video wherein we build another complete responsive website, so you guys can check that as well. And also I have another video wherein we built our own custom grid system, so you can check that as well. And then using that we built, I think, the Netflix clone, so you can check that as well. So link would be in the description or maybe somewhere on the screen. So here we have the row. Now if you see these gappings, so initially when by default bootstrap doesn't have these big gaps, so these basically are called gutters. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add this G-5. So basically we want to increase the gapping. So we increase the gutter by saying G-5, and then we have the call MD4. Basically for the medium screens, at least for the medium screens, you want 4 column size of each card, and then any screen smaller than the medium, basically you want to take the entire width. So here you have the card, when you have card header and card body, basically this one, and then inside of the card header you have the span 01, and then you have the icon, the image arrow that we have in the images folder. And then in the body we have the heading 3 that we already designed in CSS, and then we have the P tag. Okay, I'm gonna paste for the second one with the same call MD4, and the third one as well. Now the third one, if you see here, the third one has this black icon, so I've added the icon of black, the arrow black that we have in the images folder. And also, since the third one has a background, and this is a bit different compared to the other two, so we're going to add a unique class to this known as card BG. So in the CSS later, we're going to add the background image by targeting this card BG class. So we're done with the card markup as well. Now let's go to the rating section. So here as well, we'd have the container XL section heading. Now this time the section heading, we have the heading on the left and then the text on the right. So I'll just quickly paste. So we have the heading div here and text div here. And then we have the odometer, so we're going to call it stats. Inside of that, we're going to have stat. For first, we have the users. Happy seller, we're going to just call it as users. And we're going to be using heading 3. So we have the span odometer. Now this class odometer comes from their official class that the library uses to target. So we're going to be using the span odometer. And here we're going to add a data value of 900. Basically, this is the value that we want it to increase to. This is essentially the final value, and the initial value would be 0. So if I reload the page, so basically if let's reload again. Okay, so you see how it increases from a certain number. Let's reload again. Okay, so we have these loading, and then you have so you see how these number kind of increase from a certain number to 900. So the initial number would be 0, and then we want it to increase to 900. So we're going to add this data attribute of data value to 900. And then this K plus is the additional text. So we just add it right after the span ends. And then right after that, we have the span of happy sellers. So we have one stat, and then I just paste in another stat with the data value of 2.8, which would start from 0, K plus after the span ends, and then it would say shipments daily. And then we have another for app rating with data value of 4.8. Let's save. Now this wouldn't work now since we haven't added JavaScript. Now right after that, we have a row when we have these 3 images. So we're going to again increase the gutter size by specifying g-5. Now we're going to use a call MD4, and then we're going to call it image card. We're going to have the image. I'll paste in the other 2 as well. Okay. All right. Then we're going to target the portfolio. Here we have the section heading when we have the heading, and then right underneath that we have the p tag. So this section heading, we're going to need to style it custom in CSS later on. So this won't be in flex direction row, but then this needs to be as column stacking on top of each other. And then we have these. So I'm going to add showcase. Here would have showcases, and then inside of that would have for each individual showcase, I'm going to just call it showcase, and then would add a row, call MD2 for the image, call MD10 for the text and other stuff if you want to add. Would add the other showcases just like this as well. Let's save. So we have the image, text. Okay. Now since the images are too big, it looks really ugly. We're going to style it in CSS. So no worries for that. Then we have our marquee. So we're going to have this behavior property as scroll. Essentially, we want it to keep moving. And then the direction needs to be left, since we want it to move from right to left. And then the speed, you define it in this scroll amount, which I've set as 10. Inside of this, we're going to have a marquee holder where we're going to have the star icon and then the text, star, text, something like that. So I've just pasted in. So this is the star, text, and then again star image, again text. Okay. So for the marquee, you do not need to add any JavaScript. It automatically works. So as of now, it looks something like this. Okay. Now we're going to need to target our brands. Now in the brands, we have the container Excel, section heading with the text, and then the heading. And then we have our row. Now this time we don't want any spacing, so we remove the gutter space. So we remove it and we make it 0. See, we have no spacing between each column. And then here we have call MD3 for the big screens, and for the smaller screens we want 2 brands each, so we have call SM6, and then we'd call it brand holder. Inside of that we have the brand image, wherein we have the image of the brand. Now I'll just paste in all the different other. Let's save. So this is how it looks. Now all that is left is our footer. So for the footer, we're going to use container Excel footer, and then a div with anchor tag for the logo, another div for the follow us, and then a span wherein we have anchor tag for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Let's save. And then also we'd need a section for this. We'll have a div with heading 3 for the heading, and then the input container when we have the input type email with placeholder along with the submit button, just this. And then at the end we have this HR, we have the break tag, and then we have the HR, and then we have the small tag when it says hang tank copyright 2024. And with this, our HTML markup is done. Now let's add the CSS and rest the JavaScript. Okay, so for the CSS, let's go to the start of CSS file, and here we're going to target the main. We're going to give it width of 100 viewport width, and then the height needs to be fit content. So whatever height maximum it reaches after all the different contents are added. So basically we want it to fit. Yeah, and then we want display flex. Now all the different content we want to stack on top of each other. So we basically would set the flex actions column. Let's save. Let's see. Okay. No difference because by default everything is stacked up because we are using the section elements are basically block elements. So basically they're stacking on top of each other. And then we have nav. We're going to target the nav. We're going to give it the background as this. And then the container Excel inside of the nav, we want to set it as display flex, align items to center. Then we're going to give this color with padding top and bottom, left and right 0, gap of 3 rem, position of relative. Let's save. This is how it looks. I'm going to target the logo. Margin right needs to be auto, and the image needs to have a height of 8 rem, object fit of contain. Okay. And the BTN1 margin left needs to be auto. This. Let's save. No difference. Now the reason for adding here margin left auto so that these content are pushed, so that these get pushed at the center. So this logo pushes the content on the right, and this button pushes them on the left. So these anchor tags come in at the center. The reason for not being able to see it, the changes, is because we have all these stuff here. So we need to remove them. Just in a second. The menu that we have, I'm going to set the position relative, z-index of 20, since this menu is always visible even after the sidebar gets slide from left and it covers the entire screen. This icon still is visible so that we can click and we can close the menu. So we need the z-index to have a higher value. So in this case we're gonna add this as 20. The cursor needs to be pointer. The image inside of the menu, I'm gonna set the width 2.8 rem, object fit to contain, opacity 0.8. Let's save. So this is how it looks. Now the menu container, let's set the position fixed, top 0, left 0, and height and width 100 viewport height and 100 viewport width. Okay, now you see that this is gone. Now this where it is. So you see at the top right here. Okay, so we need to place it to. We need to align it well. The background. So you see everything is now covered in this grayish background. Z-index is 10 so that it is on top of almost everything except for this icon. So this has a Z-index higher than Z-index 10. We want everything at the center. So display flex, flex direction to column, justify content center, align items to center. Everything would be at the center. Now, remember we set margin left as auto for this button here. Okay, so this is also getting applied onto the button that is inside of the menu container. So what we need to do is gap of 2 rem, it's fine. We're going to translate it at the x-axis of 100. So this would not be visible. Now, so transition, we're going to add 1 seconds of ease. Overflow, we're going to hide it. Now, here we're going to target the anchor tag that is not btn1, and we want to increase the font size. Now, if I bring it back here, this one, you see, I've increased the font size. And also the font weight, color, font family, and we're going to display it in line block. Okay, let's bring it back here. You see, we have increased the font size. And also the btn, whenever you hover onto any of the anchor tag except for the btn1, you want to change the color. Okay. And also the btn1, no margin left, so we just set margin left to 0. Okay, so this is how it looks, you see. So the nav bar is built. Okay, now on clicking, this wouldn't really work because we have yet to add our JavaScript. So let's add the JavaScript. So here we're going to add our script tag. We're going to grab the menu using the query selector. We're going to grab the menu. We're going to grab the menu container, again using the query selector, and we're going to target the menu container div. And then we're going to set the menu toggle as false because initially we won't be clicking, or initially the container won't be visible. This container would be visible only when we click onto the button, and then we want it to slide in from left. And then again, if we click it, we basically want it to go away. So initially it would be false. Then whenever we have a click in the menu, so we want to add an event listener of click. So whenever we click, we want to check that if this is not visible, then we basically want it to be visible. So basically we'll target the menu container, we'll style it, transform, and remember that we have translated it 100%, basically sliding it out of the screen. Now, when we click it, we basically bring it back onto the screen. So we say translate X to 0, okay? When we click, it comes in. But if we click it again, it doesn't really work because this else we haven't really specified what we need to do. So here, if this is already clicked, or if this is visible, then if we click it again, we want it to go away. So here we want to translate X to 100%. So what we are doing here is essentially what we want to do when we want to close it. Okay? It opens, and when we click again, it doesn't really go away. The reason for that is because this menu toggle is false, and when we click, it still remains false. So what we need to do is whatever value this menu toggle has, once we click it, we just want to revert the value. So when we click, it becomes true, and when it's true, if we click again, it becomes false. Now it is true, and if it is true, we want it to be visible, but if we click again, it will become false, and this will go out of the screen. Okay, so we're done with the menu. So the menu is done. Okay, so here we've set the display as inline block, and we've set it as important. The reason for adding it here is because so later on when we add the media screen sizes, so we will be removing some of the stuff for some of the different size widths. So if we're on smaller devices, you would see that these anchor tags and these buttons would go away. So but then I don't want the button to go away from the menu. So here I've set the display as inline block and set here important, so that even if I remove it in the media query, it will get removed from the main nav bar, but it won't get removed from the sidebar. Okay, then the paragraph, all the paragraph inside of the main, I'm gonna have font size of this, line height of this. Let's save. Okay, all right, looks good. Now the intro needs to have a background. Set the background, no repeat, background size cover, min height of this, and a width of 100 viewport width, and a position of relative. Now, whenever you want to add an overlay to an image, there are several ways to add overlays to an image. So in this video, I'll be showing you two ways. The first way is a bit harder. So what you do is you basically add a before pseudo element on top of the div as an overlay itself. So this is the reason why I've set here position of relative, since this before element would be placed absolutely. And here, instead of specifying top, left, and giving it width and height, I can just set instead of 0, which means take top 0, left 0, bottom 0, and then right 0. Essentially, it takes the entire div. And then the background, so the overlay needs to have a background of some alpha value. So we've set that. The z index needs to be 1. Let's save. So we have the overlay. Now, one problem with this is that now all the different content that we have in the intro, now we are unable to select or have some interaction with them. So what we need to do is we need to specifically increase the z index of those elements. So it's at position relative, margin top, and then z index of 2. Now this heading is on top of the overlay, and so we can copy it and and have maybe click event if you want to have. Now you'd see that this paragraph is yet to have the z index of higher value, so we just need to target the paragraph, set position relative, because if you don't set position relative, you won't be able to add the z index. Margin top of 4 rem, z index of 2, width of 38 characters. Since if you remember, we've set this character width same for the section heading as well. So we want to keep everything consistent basically. Okay. And then max width needs to be 100%, is because when we look at the small screens, we don't want this 38 characters to be longer or wider than the screen width. So we've set the max width that it can take is basically 100%. Now the project, when we have two these images, and target the project, we're going to set display flex, gap of 4 rem, margin top of 4 rem, and the project, inside of the projects, we're going to give it width and height. I'm going to remove the overflow. I'm going to set a border radius, and the cursor also needs to be a pointer with position relative, z index of 2. And then the image, I'm going to set width and height to 100% and object fit to cover. Okay, so this is how it looks. Now transition of 0.3 seconds is, the reason for that is because we're going to add hover effect. So whenever we hover onto the project, the image inside of that, we're going to transform it, we're going to rotate it -5 degrees and scale it up by 1.5. Okay, you see? Now the BTN tool, this one, we want gapping. So we're going to set position relative. First, bring it on top of the overlay by specifying position relative and z index of higher value, that is 2. Margin block, basically top and bottom. Margin, 6 rem, that's safe. Okay, so we're done with our intro section. Now the next section that we have, so for all the different sections that we're going to have, we're going to set the background. So we're going to have a linear gradient to right. So these two are the color. And then a padding block, basically top and bottom padding of 10 rem for all the different sections that we are having. Okay. All right. Now the about section, the section heading that the about section has, I'm going to text align everything at the center. Save. Okay. And then the row that we had for these cards, we're going to have margin top of 6 rem. And then we're going to start targeting the card that we are having here. So for the card, we're going to set the height to 50 rem, width 100%, background to linear gradient, 45 degrees of from this color to this, and then a border radius of 1 rem, and a border of 1 pixel solid of hash 6 sevens, and then a padding of 2 rem. Let's save. So this is how it looks. When I add display flex direction needs to be column. The card header, again, these two needs to have display flex, align everything in the center. Okay. Justify content to space between, so that both the number and then the arrow icon is basically at the corners. Okay. And then the span, I'm going to increase the font size, font weight to bold, and we're going to set the font family as cabinet grotesque, which we can add just heading. And then the card header, the icon image, we set the height as 5 rem. Okay. Now the object fade needs to be contained. Now we're going to target the card body. I'm going to set margin top of auto so that everything comes down. Card body, the heading 3 that we have, we're going to have margin bottom of 2 rem. Save. All right, cool. Now the third one that we have, this one is the unique one. So we've, if you remember, we have a specific class for this, card BG. Let me just scroll up. Okay, so we have this card BG. For the third one, so we're going to target the card BG and set linear. Now the second way of adding a overlay is this. So what you can do is you can add linear gradient along with the background image. So first you specify the linear gradient. Now in this case, if you want only one single value of linear gradient, so you can add only one value. Now here I want it to have a 45 degrees of this color and this. So I have here two specific colors. Now if you want only one color, you can copy and paste it twice. And then you specify the image. Okay. And then we don't want it to repeat, so we're going to write it here. Background size needs to be cover. Let's save. Oh, okay, cool. Now it doesn't really need to have any border radius, so we're going to remove the border radius. Let's save. And we're done with the card BG. Now the paragraph, this paragraph needs to have the color of white. Let's save. Okay. Nice. So we're done with this as well. Now we're going to target the section rating. We're going to have a border top of 1 pixels solid, and then an alpha value of this. Let's save. So we have a border right where the section rating begins and where this about section ends. Now for the odometer that we have with the class of stats, I'm going to give it height, width, and a border. And then the linear gradient, we're going to set 45 degrees with these two values of color. And then we want it at the center, so we can just set margin inline auto, which is basically a margin left auto, margin right auto. So you can just add margin inline auto. Let's save. So we have it at the center. We need to add margin top. And then we have border radius and also padding of 1 rem. And then display flex, since we want everything horizontally stacking. And then at the center as well. So we're going to set space content, so we're going to set justify content space around and align everything at the center. And then the span that we have, We're going to increase the font size and also have the font family as heading, font weight to bold. And then the heading, we just also add the color with alpha value of 0.5. Save. Okay, looks good. Now the row that we're having for the images, we're going to have margin top of 6 rem, and then the image card, which is basically the 3 images that you're seeing here. So these would have height of 60 rem, overflow to hidden, and then let's save. Okay, and then the second one, which is basically this one, needs to have a height of 50 rem. So the second one is a bit short in size, you see. And then this one needs to be at the bottom, so we can align self as flex end, so this would come down at the bottom. And then the image would set width and height to 100% and object width to cover. Let's save. Okay, you're well fit now. Now I'm going to target the portfolio section. In the portfolio, we're going to give margin, we're going to give a border top, same as this rating border top. And then the section heading, if you see here, this section heading is different since everything is at the center, and their flex direction here needs to be column instead of row. So instead flex direction is column. Text align to center. Let's save. Okay. And then the paragraph needs to have width auto, no more 38 characters, but we want it to take whatever it needs to take. And then the top 5 rem, and then we're going to target the showcase. So essentially these. So the showcases, which basically is wrapping all the different showcase that we have. We set margin top of 8 rem, and then each showcase we want to have a border top of 1 pixel dashed and a color with alpha value of 0.3. So this is basically the white color with alpha 0.3. And then we want to set the cursor to pointer, and then the last style that we have, this one, so since all of them have a border top, so the last one won't really have a border bottom. So we want to have the last child also have a border bottom, including the border top. So the border top would obviously be added to all the showcases, but then the last one will also have this border bottom. And then the image needs to have a width 100% and height also 100%. And the display of inline block, margin inline auto, and then transition of 0.3 seconds is this transition is basically for this hover effect. Wait a second. Okay, so this is for the hover effect. And then the heading 3, this one, basically we want the height to be 100%. We're going to have display flex, align items, and justify content to center so that the text takes the entire height, and basically the heading we want to take the entire height and also width, and then we want the content, which is basically the text, to be set at the center. And the opacity would be 0.6. Let's save. So this is how it looks. And also this also needs to have a transition of 0.3 seconds ease, since when we hover, we want the heading 3 to have the opacity of 1, this. And then also the image, we want to transform, so we want to rotate it and also want to scale it up 1.5. Okay, looks neat. Now I'm going to target our marquee. I'm going to set background color to this, padding this, a border top and a border bottom. And then the marquee holder, which has star image, we have the star and then the text, star and then the text. We're going to set everything as display flex, align everything at the center with justify. So this should have been justify content. You can change it, and this isn't really taking into effect basically. So and then we have the image inside of the marquee holder. I'm going to set width to 5 rem so that the star is of size this, and then Now we're going to target our brands. So for the brands, we're going to set the section heading. I'm going to set the text align. This text was initially something like this, but then we want to have alignment to the right, like this. And then the row for the brands, all the different brands that we have. So we're going to have a gapping from the top, basically using margin top. And then the brand holder would have a height of 30 rem, a border top of 1 pixels, a border right of 1 pixels. And then let's save this first. Let's see. So this is how it looks. Okay. But then the last one, this one basically, okay. Or first let's do one thing. The bottom ones, these, so they don't have a border bottom. So all the different cards that are more than 5, so basically the ones that are at least more than 4. So if you add here, instead of n, if you add 0, so this would be 5. If you add here ns1, this would be 6. So 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. So all the different brands that are more than 4 would have a border bottom of 1 pixel solid of white. Let's save. Now these also have a border bottom. And the image would have width 100%, height 100%. Then we have the border radius of 2 rem, transition of ease with display flex, and then justify content and align items to center so that the images are at the center. Now the image, now on hover, we basically want the brand image to have a border of 1 pixel solid of white and also a background color of this. Okay. Now we need to decrease the size of the image. First thing that we need to do is, these are black in color, but we want white. So all that we need to do is, we're going to need to have filter, invert 100%, and then the color would change to white. Width would be 30 rem, but then the maximum that it can take is 80%. Let's save. Okay. Looks good. Now I target the footer. I'm going to set the background, padding top, padding bottom. Let's save. And then the footer class that we have inside of the footer, I'm going to target that. Let's set display flex, justify content as space between so that they have a gapping. Align items to center. Let's save. Okay. And then the input container would have a border of 1 pixel solid of this color. Then we have display flex. Then we'd add a border radius, padding, and margin top. Save. This is how it looks. Now the input, we want to take the entire width. So we'd say width 100%. And then border radius to 2 rem. Background, we're going to remove outline and border as well. And also padding, we want 1 rem from top and bottom. Left and right as 3 rem. Let's save. Looks good. I'm going to set the color to white. Font size is this. And then the placeholder, we want to change the color to white. Font size, we want to decrease a bit. And then font family as heading. Let's save. Okay, looks good. Now the p tag, essentially, this follow us. Want to decrease the font size, margin left, margin top, and then the span, which has these: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Want to display flex, gap of 2 rem, margin left and margin top, same as the footer P. And then the anchor tag would add the font family as heading and color as white. Let's save. Oops. Let's go back again. Okay. Yes. Looks good. Now the HR that we had, margin top of 5 rem, and then border color of this. Let's save. And then the footer small would have display flex, would have display block and text align as center. And then would have margin top of 2 rem. Save. Then opacity of 0.5. Okay, looks good. Now we need to add the different media queries. Okay, so as of now, we've only done for the bigger screens. Now let's add the media query. So I've added here the template. So we need to add media query for 1080 pixels, 992, 800, 768, and 576. So let's inspect. So here, let's go to 1080 pixels. So here, okay. So we need to add CSS here first. So for this, we'd decrease the heading 1, heading 2, and also heading 3. And then the paragraph also would decrease the size. Okay, nothing much. Now for the 992, if you look here, so 992 would be, yeah, so anywhere less than 992. So here we would have the brand image, this one, brand image width as 70%, object fit contain. Let's say that's all. Okay. Now, next we have 800. So let's go to somewhere less than 800. This one. Okay. Here, the HTML, we had 62.5%, which makes 1 rem as 10 pixels. Here would scale everything down. So basically, we set the font size as 60%. Now, 1 rem essentially would be less than 10 pixels. Let's save. Okay. And here, so that's all that we need to do. Anything less than 800, but then 768 here, say, we want to again revert back the font size to 62.5%, and here we need to do some massive changes. So here, first off, we'd have the nav, and then we don't want to target the logo, nor do we want to target this button, but then all the different anchor tags, we want to remove them. Okay, so this text should essentially remove all the different anchor tags that are inside of the menu container as well, since the menu container is inside of the nav. But then if I click here and if I open, you see that these aren't removed. The reason for that is because if you remember, we had written here display inline block, and we've specified it as important. So now this has a higher priority, so this won't get removed. Okay, so for the menu, for the sidebar, the anchor tags don't get removed, but then these would get removed. Okay, let's open and inspect. Okay, then we'd want to decrease the size of heading 1, 2, and 3. Section heading. Now the section heading, we basically now we want it to wrap, justify content to center, align items to center. Let's save. And then the divs, these divs we want to have as display flex and flex action to column, align everything to center, and also text align to center. Okay. Now the BTN2 gonna have margin top of 2 rem, margin bottom of 3 rem, and the paragraph width as 90%, and the heading 2 gonna have text align to center. Let's save. This is how it looks. So this got applied everywhere. Now you see these cards are so big in size, we also need to decrease the size. But first, let's go to the rating heading 2. Rating is basically this one. Let's set margin bottom of 3 rem. Okay, so we have a gapping here. And then the card, so these cards, these are so big in size. So I'm gonna decrease the height to 30 rem. Let's save. Looks good. Now the rating image card, these images, we're gonna have height to 30 rem. Important. Okay, you see. Now the reason for adding here important is because you'd see that where was it? This one. You see, so initially, if I just write it without important, what would happen is the second has a height we specified using the nth child. So that means this has a higher priority. But as soon as we specify important here, now this one is of higher priority than this nth child. So all three of them have a height of now 30. Okay. And then we want to target the stats. Second. Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna go to the stats. This one, want to have the width to 100%. It takes 100%. Showcase. These showcases. These are so big in size. Want to have margin bottom, the border bottom none. So we don't want any border at the bottom. Heading 3. Also we want to have margin block, basically top and bottom of 2 rem. And the images are so big, so I'm gonna give a height of 20 rem object fit to contain. So this is how it looks. And then margin block, basically top and bottom gapping of 2 rem. Let's save. Looks good. Now for the 576 pixels, let's take it down a bit. 570, yeah, somewhere here. And I have intro, and I have padding block of 0 rem. The intro that we are having here. So we don't really have want any padding. And also the heading 1, we're going to decrease the size. Margin top also 2 rem. Let's save. The brand holder, no border at the right. So if you see these brands, they would have a border on the right as well. So if I were to remove it, you see the border right, but then we don't want any border. Height to 15 rem, and the image would have a width of 40%, something like this. And then the footer would have flex wrap, justify content to center, align items to center. Let's save this. And the div would have flex relation to column, justify content, align items, and also the text align to center. So we have it here. And then the heading 3, margin top of 5 rem, and the logo. If you remember, in the nav, we've set the logo here, and we have set the CSS as margin right auto. So this also is getting applied here as well. So we want to set the margin right to 0 or maybe initial, which was the initial state. And here I'm going to add a class of animated. Now this is something that we haven't really added yet, but we're going to be adding. So here we're going to just add animation delay of 0 seconds. Now what is this? You would understand just in a bit. And then for the 420 pixels of width, I'm going to have the BTN1 basically, let's go top. This, we want to basically remove it. Okay. Let's save. Oh, oops. Save it. All right. And then also the heading, we want to decrease a bit. Stats. These stats, we basically want it to now show in columns. So I'm going to set flex to action to column. Height needs to be fit contain, a gap of 2 rem. Height, a width of 50%. Text align to center. Let's save. All right. We're done with our CSS. So yes, we're done with the CSS as well. Now all that's left is to add animation and JavaScript. So here, what we need to do is at the bottom, we'd add our smooth scrolling, that is Lennis. So this line of code, all you need to do is you need to come here, you need to type in Lennis JS. Let's go. You can go to their official site, or you can click onto here. And if you go down, they say, how do you use it? So this is basically the setup. Now here, what they're doing is basically, this function is basically requesting every frame. And then this is going on a recursion. So every time you scroll, the frame gets updated. So that is essentially in simple terms. So this is what it is doing. So you don't need to add the console. you can just create this Linus, and then you can call this function here. So this is what I've done. Okay, let's save. Now you would get the smooth scroll here. Cool. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to, if you look here, if I open this, I'm still able to scroll, but then we should not be able to scroll here. So what I'm doing is I'm saying Linus stop the menu when this is open, and then when this is closed, you again want to be able to scroll. Now you cannot scroll, but then when you close it, you're able to scroll it. Now if you want to know more about Linus, you can check here the documentation here. So it says, what was it? Yeah. So if you want to stop it, pause the scroll here, and if you want to resume again, so this is how it does. Now these two are done. Now we want to set our odometer. So here, this one, to get it started, what we need to do is first we're going to target our stats. I'm going to grab it using the query selector. I'm going to target the stats, and then we set the odometer started as false, since essentially we don't want it to start. And then inside of this raf function, what we need to do is first we need to grab the position of stats. So we grab it by using this get bounding client rect. Basically, this is the position of our stats. Okay, where is it located? Now we're going to check if this is not started. Basically, if okay, so if this has, so initially this is false. So when this, so if this is not started, and then if it hits this area of the browser, basically the inner height, if this hits, or if the starting position or the top position that we're grabbing here, the top position is less than or equal to the Windows inner height, which is basically this section. Okay, then what you want to do, and also if the bottom position is greater than or equal to 0, only then you want to first grab the odometers. All the odometers you're going to grab using the query selector all, and then you want to add a for each loop, and then for each odometer, what you want to do is you want to target the odometer, and then you want to have the inner HTML update. Now how do you want to update? So remember we had a data attribute set. So we're going to target, we're going to grab that data attribute with data value, and then whatever value is in that, we want to set that as the inner HTML. And then after it is set, we'll set that odometer started as true, so that the next time we come again, we do not get the same animation. Okay, you see? Let's refresh it. So whenever the odometer hits, you see the animation, and then if you come back again, no more animation. It just happens for the first time. Okay, so this part is done. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to add our on scroll animation. So that we're going to be using, using wow.js and animate CSS. So first, for the wow, we create a wow variable with new wow, and then we just initialize it. And now all we got to do is add the animation. So let's go up top here. First in the intro, what you need to do is you need to add the class of wow, and then animate animated, and then animate underscore fade in up. What are these? So if you go to animate CSS, and if you go to their, no, not this, not image. If you click here, so you have different types of effects. Now what I'm using is fade in up, this one. So how do you use it? So you basically add this animate animated, and then animate underscore, and then the name of the animation. So that is what we are doing. So when you initialize the wow, as soon as the element is visible, it will trigger the animation. In this case, this is fade in up. Let's see. Let's refresh the page. Wait a second. Oh, okay. I have to save it. You see, as soon as this is visible, let's reload from this, and then let's scroll up. You see, as soon as we go up, the animation starts. Okay, let's add this in different areas as well. So we're gonna need to add it in the paragraph, in the project. So we're gonna keep it consistent. So we're gonna use the fade in up here as well, in the heading, in the cards. Now here, the first card that we have would just normally animate, but then the second one would also have a delay, animation delay of 1 second. So this you can have animate underscore delay hyphen 1 second. So this is for the second one, and the third one would have a delay of 2 seconds. You can just write 2s. Let's save. Okay. First, second, this one, third. Now we're going to do it for the rating section. We're going to add the animation. And then for these images as well. So the first one would fade in from left, the second one up, and then the third one from right. Let's save. So for the rating, this one is done. First, left, right, and this one comes in from bottom. Now for the portfolio, we have the fade in up. For the paragraph, fading up as well. For the showcases as well, I'll just paste it in here. Let's save. Okay, the text comes in. These as well. Okay, looks smooth. Now for the brands, fading up, and then, okay. Now for these, what I need to do is here I've added for the first one, the second one would have a delay, the third one would have a delay 2 seconds, and then the fourth one would have a delay of 3 seconds. And then the fifth one would basically come in here. So this comes in again in the new row. So the fifth one, I don't really want any delay. But then the sixth one, I again want 1 second. The seventh one, I want 2 seconds. And then the eighth one, I want again 3 seconds of delay. Something like this. Okay. All right. And then for the footer, we'll have these added here. Okay. Let's save. Okay. Okay, looks good. So yes, there you have it. So the project is complete. So hope you liked the video. Hope you liked the tutorial. The video was longer than usual since there were a lot of stuff to be done. And I hope this helped. Hope you were able to learn a couple of stuff, how to use Linus, how to use on-scroll animations, how to make a website responsive, and a lot of other stuff. So yeah, if you like this video, please make sure to subscribe the channel if you haven't, and please share the video with your friends and family because it would help my channel grow. And also comment down below what you liked about this video, and if you have any doubt, any queries, please comment down below and I'll make sure to answer that. So with that being said, that's it for this video. Meet you guys in the next video. Till then, bye bye, have a good day.